Welcome to the show.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much,
Lori.
Lori.
This is really a great opportunity, isn't it, for us to address this incredible time that we're in. And I just want to jump right in with all of you experts, because we're all going to learn from you this week. What do you see are the effects of the pandemic in regards to anxiety and stress from your personal experience and your professional experience? Mary, how about you start?
Oh, yeah, it's been quite a year, that's for sure. Personally, I have found a higher than degree average of anxiety for me, and I like to think I have tools to manage it,
Right.
but I think a lot of it has to do with just the unknown. And certainly in my practice, the sheer number of people, like, first of all, people stopped coming for a while. And then when they started coming, it was a flood of people, and anxiety was the primary one. And what is concerning for me is we're seeing a lot of children coming. And
Wow.
if you think about it, we have a generation of kids being raised where this is normal
Yeah.
and it's not normal. So
Right.
I'm just imagining how this is shaping their
Mhm.
view of the world and the safety and all that. So it's been
Wow.
quite an impact for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Mary. Andrew, what have you seen? What have you experienced?
I would say the same. What I've found is that with the with the pandemic being present, we often forget that prior to the pandemic, we had certain challenges and ways of thinking and experiencing life, and it's like a weight has been added on top of that. So I've been aware of my own anxiety that's been a little bit higher. But yes, I've found that many people who I had seen in the past came back as well as a result of that awareness that, okay, I'm checking in. I need some
Right.
support with this. So it has added another layer to the challenge that many people have
Mhm.
already been experiencing.
I was just thinking, I mean, from all of your perspectives, you're seeing people that are asking for help, but there's so many that aren't asking for help. Harrison, what is, I think, just a basic question here, and maybe you want to share your own personal experience as well, but what is anxiety and what does it look like, just to be really clear?
Well, like Mary is saying, there's a lot of people with anxiety issues. I believe that, I think for myself, when I see anxiety, I see it where it's not knowing what's going to happen, is the fear of the unknown. My illustration I usually explain to people, I says it's like holding onto a rope and the rope is being cut and you have no idea what's going to happen. But I tell my clients, I says, there's a backpack and that backpack have a lot of tools. So we need to tap into some of those tools.
Right.
And it is growing. It is really growing because people are afraid of what's going to happen in the future with this pandemic. And so many stresses adding on to it that they're falling into panic attacks. Some of them are like they have phobias now, like social distances that create a lot of phobias. There's so many things that are contributing, and I find it's just really getting worse. It's exacerbating the minds of individuals with what's going on.
Right. I mean, that's a great illustration. You have a backpack with tools, but what we want to do this week is to help people access some of those tools. So what is the impact then of this stress over an extended period of time? Because that's really what's happening here. Andrew, why don't you respond
Mm-hmm.
first?
Yeah, certainly. Um, my thoughts about the impact over a long period of time are related to the fact that we have been built by God to be resilient and to withstand stresses and pressure and all these things. However, we're not meant to endure the weight of these things forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the length, the duration of time, it's like a pillow and it gets compacted and compressed. And if the weight comes off, then the pillow kind of, expands again. But the longer that weight is there, it decreases the ability of the pillow to kind of expand again. So it's important for us to be aware that we have the opportunity to kind of withdraw from the stress in different ways so that we can rejuvenate and get refilled again. Even though the pandemic is still here, there are ways to kind of to be filled
Right.
and refilled again and again and again, even though the pandemic hasn't dissipated.
Yeah, that's a good point. Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love that example of the pillow. I'm going to start using it, okay, with
Yeah,
when
for
I
sure.
explain it to clients.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when you think about anxiety, it really is a natural physical response to a perceived stressor or perceived danger. So if you think of it from that standpoint, our brains are being geared to respond to stress. So it goes into hyper vigilance, uh, hyper arousal, where we're just that much more aware of possible danger. And often in the unknown, we can create our own ideas of what danger might look like. And so the challenge with that is when that's our, hyped up response to anxiety, and there's not much going in to refuel us, to allow us to rest, then it begins to affect our physical health. It affects our adrenal system. It affects our sleep, our even ability to relax. So all of that ends up, unfortunately, having health problems. It's linked to cardiovascular disease. They've even shown some links to cancer. But just when you have a lifetime or a long time of, chronic stress where you can't be alleviated from it, then your body begins to react to it in less healthy ways.
Wow, that's really
Hmm.
a great reminder. What's the difference between the stressors that are on us, those external things, and the stress that we actually feel? Mary, you refer to this as the stress cycle. What does that mean? Is
Right.
that somewhat of what you're talking about?
Yes. So we often think that when a stressor comes into our life, we have no choice but to experience it as stress. But the stressor is the external event or person, and the stress is actually our emotional response. So we are at every given time responding to life, to stimuli with an emotion. Like we're 100% emotional beings, so it always goes to the emotional part of our brain. So we're feeling 100% of the time, and all of us are. So it's how we respond and think about what's happening to us that creates the stress.
Mm,
And being able to complete the stress cycle is, as many of us do, we feel a stress, we push it down, we white knuckle our way through it, and we just kind of try to ignore it and we hope it
right.
goes away. But it doesn't because it's just all buried inside there. So
Yeah.
completing the stress cycle is being able to kind of enter that emotional tunnel of how you actually feel and be able to come out the other side. And there's a
Wow.
bunch of strategies to do that, which I can share towards
Yeah.
the end of the show,
Yeah.
that can help people complete the stress cycle.
Well, I
Mhm.
think we'll get back to that too, because we're actually going to continue this conversation. Harrison, what's your response to that?
Well, it's interesting when I was reading an article that before COVID, there were about 14% of healthcare workers that were affected by the stress and anxiety. With COVID, it's over 43%.
Wow.
Mm.
And when I look at anxiety, for example, comparing to say psychosis or depression, anxiety is actually a reaction, whereas say depression is more of a chemical base out of the neurotransmitters like the dopamine and serotonin. And I'm looking at statistics and seeing how much prescriptions are being made today for anxiety itself as a result of this pandemic. When we talk about the stress, I'm doing a research right now, and in actuality, people are becoming addicted to stress. So you have healthcare workers who are coming home and they have a very hard time de-stressing. And when they do de-stress, they feel that they are starting to panic because they need something to do. The mind is becoming so overwhelmed where they're becoming addicted to stress. And I find that's very interesting, like Mary's saying, like we react to things, out of the emotions, but now with so many changes in our chemical in our brain, it's affecting the way how we are surviving.
Wow.
But we have hope in God, and I think
Yeah.
that's the big, the answer where we can really rely on some kind of resolution to keep moving ahead.
Well, you said it, Harrison. We have hope in God, and we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk more about this and the hope that God brings.